Happy Tuesday, everyone. It is the second day of sunshine in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm pretty pumped up about the fact it may be cold as all get out here, but at least the sun is shining and there is no rain. So, welcome to another episode of the story I'm telling myself. You know the drill at this point. If you're a loyal listener, come in the comments and say hello to us, my guest, and really good speaker friend that inspires me. I'm just trying to keep up with Miss Kelly Charles. So it's true, Kelly. It's true, Kelly. Welcome to the show. Thank you for saying yes. And just take a moment and tell everybody who you are.
Thank you for having me, Rita. I love the idea of this show. So I am Kelly Charles Collins. I'm a high stakes communications expert and strategist. I work with women, with leaders, with executives to really help them take what's in their brain, reframe it, and learn how to communicate their value with confidence, credibility, and clarity.
I love that. And you do that. You do that. I mean, her receipts, they're huge. I'm not going to lie. Her receipts are huge. And she has a YouTube channel and she is inviting you to come get all the good stuff that she puts out there regularly for you for free. So at
Yes.
youtube.com at speakin, no G, of speaking with a G. And it's in the comments. So make sure that you go out and subscribe and give some love to Kelly for joining us today and sharing her story. So, Kelly, you did the immensely hard work of becoming a lawyer. I mean, that's not an easy thing. I mean, just to sit for the test is a whole big thing. And then
Three
to
times. And I
read,
did I did three bars, not even just one. I've done three.
it's crazy. It is crazy. Yes. I mean, in law school, I mean, it is asking a lot of yourself, right? You did all of this, you had a thriving career, and then you had this moment where you decided that this wasn't necessarily your calling. And that's where we're going to join you in this story. So give us some context, set us up here, and then tell us about the story that you had in your head that was guiding you at that point.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I went to law school on a whim, so it wasn't one of those things where it was like, this is my lifelong dream that I needed to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a lawyer. I actually went on a whim and practiced
Okay,
law
you
for
may be the only person I know that's going to say that, Kelly Charles, which
I
is just
did.
proof of why she's the amazing woman that you need to know. Like, I just did this on a whim, but can we
I
also just
did.
talk about just a minute, like you like bowing down to Black women's receipts because Black women do this stuff all the time. They just are like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, well, I guess it would be a good thing. Like, so educated and hungry and appreciative of the opportunity to leverage your mind because
Mhm.
girl, I gotta tell you, I'm too lazy to do that. I wouldn't just on a whim say I'm gonna sign up for all that work.
Yeah.
I am way too white lazy for that. I'm just admitting that right
Yeah,
here,
no,
right now.
I ended up doing it because I had a conversation with a high school colleague and a high school friend, and he said I was getting my master's degree at the time, and he said he was going to go to law school, and I was like, oh, I can go to law school. I could do that, right? I was 21, had just had a baby, didn't know what the heck I was doing, was getting my MBA, and was like,
Oh
oh,
my
okay,
God, you were
it's
getting an
next.
MBA, had a baby, and okay, here's the part of the story I've never heard.
Yeah,
Had a newborn baby and said, I just think I'll take on law school. Girl, you
yeah.
are crazy. You are well, here's what it is. You are wicked smart. I mean, you are
I am
just
wicked
wicked
smart. I
smart.
will say that. I am wicked smart. I'm also very resourceful, and I'm also a person who believes my mom raised me to really believe that I could do anything. And so I went off to law school. And while I started practicing law as a public defender, and then I switched over into employment law. So working with organizations and representing, billion-dollar global organizations as their lead counsel and really becoming their trusted advisor. After years of doing that, if you know anything about trial lawyers, we work very, very long hours preparing for trial, then doing the trial, and all the things that come with that. And it got to be a lot. I always really enjoyed it, but around 2000, like late 2000, like in 2017, I had moved to Tampa the year before, and I was working at a law firm. And one of the things that they had me doing was taking on personal injury cases, which I absolutely hated. I love employment law, but I hated personal injury. And part of personal injury, you take the depositions of these doctors, right? Our experts. And I was sitting in a deposition one day and taking the deposition of an expert witness of a doctor. And we were in this beautiful building in downtown Tampa, just like, looking out on everything. And one of the questions that we ask is, how much money have you made as an expert witness? Because we use it to discredit them, right? Saying that they are, hired guns, which they are. And so I was asking him that question, and, over a period of time, like, how much have you made over the past 3, 4 years? And he said millions. And I was like, millions. Oh, okay. Okay. So what struck me though in that moment is that when he said that he made millions, I knew that he was making millions not from being a doctor, right? Like doing the work of a doctor, but using his mind, like what he knew, right? So he had figured out how to get paid for what he knew as opposed to, I say, what he knew, right? Which was to be a medical doctor. So these doctors, they just review paperwork. They never meet the plaintiff. They never examine them. They don't, none of that, right? They're just reviewing. And I was just like, "Girl, you are in the wrong business. Like this is crazy. You are in the wrong business." Had that happen again at another deposition, and I was just sitting there and I was like, "There's got to be more than this. Like there has got to be more than this." And I wanted to figure out how I could leverage what I knew instead of what I do to make money, right? And so the tagline of my podcast is cash flow what you know. And that's really what I wanted to understand. How do I cash flow what I know instead of the hard work of, being a trial lawyer and doing these things all the time? And so, uh,
Brilliant, by the way. Brilliant insight.
thanks. And so I started looking at what I had been doing. I had always taught. While I was practicing law, I was a mediator, I was an arbitrator, I had taught law school, I had taught, the police and the correction academies. So I had already been teaching, and I used to teach my clients and do trainings for them. And so I decided that what I wanted to become was a professional speaker. I wanted to leverage my profession to pursue my purpose. And so started looking at how I would do that. And so I don't know if you want me to stop or keep going. So
Well, yeah, this is probably a good pause. And this
yeah.
is see Kelly's an expert at this because she does this all the time. So it probably is a good place to pause. So one of the things I want to call out is that, we're talking about our internal narrator on this podcast and the story that our internal narrator. And it is not that your internal narrator is always unreliable and sending you in the wrong direction. Right. In this case, Kelly, your internal narrator was like, ding, 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 like, girl, it is time to wake up and get on the gravy train.
Yep.
Right. Which
Yep.
is, I mean, because if you can trade in your knowledge, right? I mean, people are looking for this all the time. I see these ads all the time on LinkedIn for consultants like myself that are hey Sharon, good morning. Thank you for being with us. That are in this sort of same space that are saying, look, do these courses that are passive income, right? I mean, basically he figured out a way of doing passive income kind of thing as a doctor if you don't have to actually meet with patients and deal with patients and that kind of thing. It's the same idea.
Yep.
And in which you were talking, it was making me think about the 4 hour work week. What's that guy's name?
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. I can't think of
Oh,
his name.
I can't think of his name, but that this was probably before that book even came out. The same idea. This is what everybody is chasing in the 4 hour work week is this way to monetize what you know. So you have this revelatory insight, right? That your internal narrower is like, girl, get on this train, and you listened.
Yeah.
You listened. However, I'm going to guess at this stage that even as you are thinking about, okay, I do feel a lot of passion and purpose around being a public speaker and I see this opportunity. I'm betting that there was also some doubt narration popping up in your head. So share with us a little bit about um, what are some of the thoughts that you had to navigate before you were really ready to give yourself permission
Yeah,
to make
it's
that step?
interesting because it's interesting that you say that because the doubt actually did not creep in until after, right? The doubt
Oh,
came in. So I knew that I could do those things. So it was the speaking I've been doing for decades, right? So the idea of speaking wasn't the issue. It was moving out of, oh, thanks, Sharon. It was moving out of what I had been doing and what I knew as a lawyer and was excellent at. And now coming into this new space and understanding that I had to figure out entrepreneurship and I had to figure out the business of speaking, not necessarily the act of speaking, because I already knew how to do that. And I didn't know, I didn't what crept in for me is that I wanted to, like, make a split, right? So it's like, okay, I've decided now that I don't want to practice law anymore. I want to transition and I want to become this professional speaker. So now I wanted to make a break. I wanted to just leave life behind, leave that life behind, and then come into this new life. And it's interesting because I knew that I was trying to cash flow what I knew, like taking that, but I did not want to take the bag and the baggage. So I didn't want to take the title. I didn't want to
mm,
take the title of lawyer and I didn't want to put the ESQ after my name. And I didn't want to be known as the lawyer because I didn't want people to think that I was going to be talking about things that related to the law. And so I was trying to leave that behind. And
so the story you were telling yourself
yeah,
is that people would have certain assumptions
that's right.
about you and your content that would be limiting to
Yes.
you if you kept the Esquire.
Yes. And that they would be looking to me for legal advice. And I was trying to leave that behind. And so I did make up this
Gotcha.
story about the fact that I could not take that life into this new life. And that was the biggest story, the biggest false story because it took my sister to really into my head that I had to bring that life with me. And I'll tell you one thing she said to me because I said to her, like, listen, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to say Esquire. I don't want to do all of those things. I am now a speaker. And she said to me, I want you to think about how people listen, right? And how the perception that people have. And she said, think about yourself and think about introducing yourself, right? As Kelly Charles Collins, speaker, keynote speaker, and what author, whatever you want to do. She said, now think of yourself as introducing yourself as Kelly Charles Collins, attorney, keynote speaker, and author. She said there is a different listening that people have when they hear that you're an attorney because, like you were saying in the beginning, Rita, there's a lot of work, right? There's a lot of work that goes into going to law school and finishing law school and actually taking the bar and passing the bar and the work of a lawyer, right? So it's not that I just did those things, I actually did the work of a lawyer and the skill sets that you get. And so here it is, I was saying to myself, like, that those doctors were essentially my muse in terms of what the life was going to look like. And they had taken their medical doctor and still calling themselves doctor into that space. And yet I was trying to leave it behind. And it was one of the mistakes in the beginning of really trying to position myself. And the moment that it clicked for me and I was like, yeah, I really should do that, it changed because one of the things about positioning, especially as speakers and experts, is that we, and especially high achieving women, we often are we've been taught this. So this is this is systemic, right? And ingrained in us. We've been taught to leave all of that behind, like not to brag, not to boast, not to whatever. But it ain't bragging if it's true. And what we do is then try to leave those pieces behind, and then we don't show up in the power of who we are. So the moment that I decided, like, yeah, no, I am that chick. And I am right. I did practice law for all these years. And I am an expert in the things that I want to speak about. The game changed because I showed up differently. Right. And so I think that the story I had to tell myself is that I am that chick, not that you got to leave that chick behind. No, I am that chick. And that chick is going to come into this space and show up just as powerfully. I'm just going to leverage all of those skills in a much different way. And so that for me was a total game changer. And I know from working with my clients who are also brilliant, most of them are women, that they have some of the same things. And I have to, really get them to understand that no, if you have a PhD, if you have whatever it is that you have, put all the things behind your name, put all the things in front of your name, because we are often waiting for others to knight us as expert or knight us as
Ooh,
qualified or knight us as the one, when if we don't do that for ourselves first, if we don't first claim that, then even somebody else claiming that for you, you will never be able to fully step into the power of that.
I've got to write that one down too. I love I love that saying that, I am that chick, because, first you said it ain't bragging if it's true. And I think we need to give ourselves permission. Like, all of us need to have this on a placard that sits at our desk that reminds us every day that the receipts of your lived experience are your receipts. You're
Yeah,
allowed to claim them.
every
Um,
one of them.
and it's you're right. We have been systemically conditioned to leave a lot of those things behind. And then you just come on top of that with this idea of waiting to be knighted. And that really, whoo, girl, I feel that in my chest. Like, I have been in that place of waiting to be knighted. And it's because I've been told that it's off-putting to others when I show up and claim. Right. I've been
Yeah,
told to back that up a little bit.
but you know
And
who doesn't have that problem? Our male counterparts don't have that problem, right? We have
right.
to, the story we have to tell ourselves is that we are that chick, and that we have the audacity, we have the authority, we have the qualifications, we have the right to stand up in the power of every single thing about us. Like every I don't care how big or how small, right? Everything that we have and everything that has made us who we are today and allows us to be who we are in the spaces that we are in. One of my life motto is I belong everywhere I am, but I don't belong everywhere. And so, in order for me to really, live into that, I have to be true to myself and understand that, oh no, yes, ma'am, you are her. You are definitely her.
Well, let's unpack that saying a little
Mhm,
bit, because it is really powerful, and it gets to the question I wanted to ask you, which
mhm.
is, I'm just a huge fan because of the message and the strength and conviction that you bring in your message, Kelly. But this, if we're going to be audacious and we're going to stand in our power, we are still going to come up to places and spaces where people are pushing back.
Yeah.
So, you're saying, I am that chick.
Mhm.
Tell us about what happens when somebody says, I don't care if you are that chick, you know,
Yeah.
and sort of wants to push back on you. What stories want to come up for you, and how do you reframe those so that you stay in your power instead of allowing that moment to disempower you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm Black, right? I'm a Black woman, and so that's my lived experience my whole life. So I have been up against that battle my entire life. And what I always like to say is that what people think of me, what their opinions are not my business. It's data. And so that data, I use that data to figure out what, how to respond. And, you have the book, my new book, The Art of Strategic Resistance. And one of the things that's in the book is the idea, what I call my be in the know principles. And being in the know means that when you're in spaces like that, you have to know where, like, you have to have your roadmap of where you're going. So if I'm in a space where I feel that, somebody thinks I shouldn't be there, that's on them, I don't care, but somebody thinks I shouldn't be there, or somebody is being, off-putting, or somebody's doing something, I have to think to myself, okay, I know the game, right? And I have to know the game that I want to play in that room. So is the game a game of, I'm here to meet people, I'm here to elevate my authority, I'm here to close a deal. Like, what is the reason that I'm there, right? And so knowing the game, and then knowing like the end game, like what is the mission that I'm on? Who are the people that are in this room? Now, it might be that I decide that it's not worth it to me because I know why I'm here. And so I might exit because not every room deserves me, right? Not every room deserves my presence. And so maybe I will leave that room. However, if I know that I belong in that room and I have something that I need to accomplish in that room, then I need to figure out who are the other players in that room. And I need to work those players, and I need to work around that so that I can accomplish my mission in spite of what's ever happening over here. One of the things that I am is very strategic and intentional. And I'm also very emotional, and I will clap back, right? And when I was younger, I loved to fight, like this fight, right? Right. And my mouth can be wicked. So I have to make sure that I am managing what is happening and really understanding what is really the end game for me, right? And is this a clapback moment, or is this a ignore you moment? Do what you're doing over there. I don't care. Like, I see you, I hear you, I don't care. I'm on a different mission. Or is it just a remove myself moment? Because
Mm.
sometimes it's just this ain't worth it. I gotta go. Right. And so being black, right, being black in America, um, has taught us so much about how to navigate those spaces. Being a black woman in the law has taught me a lot, even more about how to navigate those spaces. Being in spaces where you have equal or more qualifications than people who, you know, dare to disrespect you or degrade you. And how do you step up, and how do you respond in those moments? And in the begin I've always been a person to just be like, we're not doing that, right? And even like closer to the end, when I really knew I was trying to get out of there, got even more vocal. And the reason that I got even more vocal, um, and more sharp with the responses was because I was often the only woman, the only black person in the room, and the only, when I say only woman lawyer. And then I would have like the court reporters, like we're in depositions and things are happening and they're being disrespectful to me. And I decided in those moments to start being more vocal and speaking up because I knew that they couldn't. I could and they couldn't, and I wanted them to see that there was power in being able to, um, preserve your dignity, and cause people to, respect you, or to understand that if they were gonna be disrespectful, they were gonna get it back. So, that was a long answer to a short question, but
No,
I just think it was really important to show the context of it.
yes, it is. And what that makes me think of is one of my favorite mentors, Peter Block, and his work. One of the things that he said at a training program that I was at is that when you choose safety and security, you give up your power. And that's what you were just describing, a
Yeah.
moment where the bigger game here is about safety or power, right? And um in so many times, and again, systemically conditioned to choose safety. But when you keep choosing safety over and over again, right? And the story you tell yourself is, I need to step back. I need to step back and be safe. I need eventually there's another part of your brain that kicks in that says you just keep selling yourself out here. You know, the only person that you are disappointing here is you.
Yeah.
Like the only person you're selling short here is you. And we can only do that to ourselves for so long before the mental toll of that
Yeah.
really starts to impact us.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's it's one of those things that we obviously need to make sure that we're safe, right? We are obviously mentally safe, physically safe. However, power and influence come with a level of risk. And
Yes.
my goal is to be influential, right? My goal is to be an influencer in spaces. Not influencer in terms of like, oh, I want to be, I'll take that too because they get free stuff. But but influential in terms of like when I want to, like, you know how this is gonna age me. Like when E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. I try my best to make sure that when I do show up, when I do speak, that people want to listen, right? That people can be influenced by me, by my presence, by my voice, by my visual, all of those things. And sometimes being able to do that requires you to not forego safety in terms of the physical sense, like you're going to be harmed or anything, but the safety of maybe saying the thing or being the person who brings up the thing, right? So, for example, I wrote the book, The Art of Strategic Resistance, and I wrote it in response to the election, in response to, Kamala Harris losing. And, I had to think about that. I thought about that in terms of like what I was saying in the book and what should I put in that book. And I decided not to be safe about it and to just say what I was thinking, right? And to say what needed to be said. And we have to do that because as we see, for those who have so often chosen safety, for those who have so often chosen just personal um their own personal desires and wants for like it has nothing to do with me. Because of that, we see a lot of what is happening now. And now, it's like we have to speak out, but we're so not used to that muscle. We're afraid of what's going to happen. But all of those things, all of that oppression, discrimination, all of that happens because of silence. All of that is fed by silence. And so, the story that we keep telling ourselves is that that has nothing to do with me. Like, I don't want to say anything. I'm going to lose, these contracts. We losing them anyway, right? We're losing them anyway. I'm going to lose my rights. I'm going to lose my job. We're losing them anyway. And so we have to really understand the game and we have to understand our role in that game and we have to understand how we're going to play. Like, and each time we have to be thinking about that. And the story that we should be telling ourselves is that we as individuals have the power to create change, even if it's in our little space. Like for me, the way that I want to create change is to ensure that women's value is not erased. And so the way that I know to do that is to work with women to help them understand how to leverage their voice, how to get it out there, whether you're a speaker or a trainer or a consultant or, an executive. Like, how do you really leverage your voice in the spaces that you're in? And how do you also leverage silence? And so those are the things that I think we have to start understanding, like start tell the story we need to start telling ourselves is I have a role to play in all of this and I just need to decide what that is. I don't have to be the end all and be all for everyone, but what is the role that I am going to play to ensure that society as a whole um thrives, right? And that people feel that their humanity is not being disrespected, degraded, discounted in any way.
So the theme of this episode is about leaving yourself behind.
Mhm.
And I love where this conversation has come to, because one of the things that you do is when you don't choose to speak up in those moments, when you don't choose to stand for your right to be treated with respect and dignity, you are leaving yourself behind.
That's
And I
right.
think for so many of us, the story that we tell ourselves is that when we speak up, it's going to be confrontational, it's going to be painful, it's going to be difficult. But that word confrontation, I hear that so much come out of people's mouths. And we're scared, we're frightened. The word confrontation automatically puts us in a different headspace.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's powerful when you're in these moments, and in the word that you keep wanting to land on is confrontation, to replace that word with the word alignment. Right? You were talking about what's my purpose, what's my goal. If you're you've already admitted, Kelly, that you are a clapback queen, that you're good with a really
I've
good
gotten better. I
clapback.
don't do it as much.
But I mean, a lot of people are not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And so, but you don't, it doesn't have to be a clapback. You can, if you tell yourself, my purpose in speaking up is to align with, we are in misalignment right now because my values are not being honored, because my dignity and respect are not being honored. I need to realign with this person so that I am in a conversation that restores that for me. Then you can operate from the question of, okay, what is it going to take to realign? What do I need to ask for? It takes you to a whole different headspace than, I need to confront this person and tell them how wrong they are, that they are not treating me with dignity and respect. I mean, that takes you to a whole different emotional level and layer. And so the story within the story is really important.
Yeah. And I think also when you think about confrontation, right? I'm a lawyer, so that's what we do all day. However, if you think about, because just coming back to what you just said, like I need to confront this person about this. If we think though about confrontation as not always a negative thing, because sometimes we have to confront issues, right? Like right now, there's lots of issues that we have to confront. It's not necessarily from a negative space. So the thing to think about is, if I'm going to have a confrontation with someone, where am I? Like I have to check myself in terms of what is it. So this goes back to my one of my frameworks, the perfect framework for courageous conversations, which is in the preparation stage, right? So per is prepare, engage, reflect. In the preparation stage, it's okay, what's happening for me right now? What is it that I'm trying? What is the intention and the objective of this conversation? If the confrontation is fighting, right? And to just let that person know, clap back and do whatever and call them out and do all those things. Well, okay, great. You know that. That's my intention. And the outcome is whatever it is. Right. So, and that's fine. However, if you're going to confront somebody about an issue and the real purpose is to create some understanding or clarity or get them to really try to shift their perspectives or something, then it's understanding, okay, what is the intention and purpose of this conversation, and how do I want to leave this person, and how do I want to have this conversation end. So it's just thinking about the confrontation as the confrontation is that I'm going to now engage with another person, right? It's not necessarily negative, but what is the context now within which we're going to have that confrontation? Is it going to be a negative interaction, or is this a confronting an issue, like putting an issue on the table so that we can then discuss it, and we may end up agreeing to disagree. However, we've had this productive dialogue around it. So I think it's just shifting perspectives a little bit around what that word means and how you intend for that quote unquote confrontation to occur.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is the next level evolution for certain, for people to be able to reaffirm that word confrontation in their head and really own it. So that the story you tell yourself about confrontation is, and this is part of what Peter Block also teaches, is it's the good thing. He says no is the start of a great conversation. When you say, no, I'm not really good with you speaking to me that way, right? That is the start of a great conversation, because it is the invitation for us to say what else is possible in the space. So if you see confrontation, but again, many people just can't even get to step one with that, which is why they need The Art of Strategic Resistance. Brilliant
And
book.
Convo Catalyst, because Convo Catalyst really talks about how to have those
That is
conversations.
true.
So,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. I grabbed that when we were together at conference and had both of our
Yeah.
books on the table. Well, look, we are at the end of our time, Kelly, and we could continue to talk about this. This has been so powerful and so meaningful. I appreciate you saying yes. Are any final words you want to leave the listeners with before we close out our time together?
I would just say that we're in a time where there's lots of stories that we're going to be telling ourselves, and we need to be the check. And so we need to understand whether that story is true. Where did it come from? Why do we believe it? And how is that impacting us? You were saying, these stories are holding us back. And if I had not, listened to my sister and really worked through that story of leaving everything behind and instead saying, no, it comes with me. It is part of who I am. I wouldn't be who I am today in this world and in this space of, professional speaking and training and mentoring and, now being a four-time author. So I think it's really being the check on ourselves about the stories that we're telling ourselves and being honest, because sometimes the story is true.
Yes.
And
And
then where it isn't true, moving beyond that.
if anybody is confused, this isn't just about the Esquire behind the name. We're talking about the foundational skills and capacity
That's
that
right.
Kelly built being a lawyer, doing all of that work and carrying all of that forward. And you have the same things in you. It could be the leadership that you gleaned when you were the team captain of your high school sports team. But have you left that in the past, or are you pulling that lived experience forward with you and utilizing that? I mean, we all do have parenting. Oh, God. I mean, there's, what I've learned in parenting that makes me a better leader today. And the things that I learned in leadership that I should have been using in parenting, like that's a whole book I could write right there. But, there are all these areas in our lives. So kellycharlescollins.com is where you are going to find her. And we have enjoyed, Sharon, thanks for being in the chat with us today. We've enjoyed having your comments. I hope you guys see why Kelly is one of my favorite people. Please connect with her. Please keep following her. Join her YouTube channel, because there's lots of great learning available from her. Kelly, thank you for saying yes to joining us on The Story I'm Telling Myself. This episode was amazing. I appreciate having you. So coming up, just to give the preview, I should have had this already in my calendar. Our next episode is Friday. It's Karen Taylor, who is a specialist in grief counseling, and she's going to talk about this this earworm. My dad recently deceased, and we all get it about what did I do wrong? Am I part of how am I to blame for this happening? And she's going to talk about her own experience with that and how that has led her into a new career, helping people navigate that transition and identifying the stories that really become crippling to us in our grief. And so I know that you guys are going to find that really valuable. So be sure that you save that time on your calendar or catch the replay Friday at 1 p.m. with Karen Taylor. Thank you again, Kelly. And
You're
we'll see you guys
welcome.
again soon. Bye.